Good day, everyone. It's Monday, April the 12th. I'm Martin Gago with Radius Research. Today we have Boardwalktech, BWLK on the venture. Joining us today, we've got Andy Duncan and Charlie Glavin, CEO and CFO respectively. Andy, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us. Please take it away.
Hi, Martin. Thanks very much for having us. It's an honor to be here. Happy to start off and kind of give everybody an introduction with regard to Boardwalktech. Forward-looking statement as normal. And let me tell you a little bit about Boardwalktech. So we are based in Cupertino, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. We also have an operation in Mumbai, India. We have developed and delivered to market a kind of what we think is a revolutionary platform for enterprise information management. It is a cloud-based digital ledger, and it's also a low-code application platform. And it's designed to help companies to automate a lot of the manual processes that they have within their organization. We look at ourselves as kind of the new Bloomberg for enterprise information data. So since 2018, we've got a very strong business model, 24, I think, of the Fortune 500 as customers. 63% of our revenue is from multi-year annual recurring licenses since 2018. Our pipeline continues to grow. Last year at this time, Martin, it was about 4 million, and now we're in excess of 8. And obviously, from a kind of an operational leverage standpoint, the company is consistently run at 85% plus gross margins. We've had a very large improvement. Last year, our fiscal year ended at the end of March. 53% improvement on net income. We are driving toward being a profitable organization, which we believe will happen in the next quarter or two. And those of you that also saw, any announcements that we've made this year so far, this calendar year, we did a raise, both a brokered and a non-brokered private placement that we did. It was the brokered was for Canada, the non-brokered was for the U.S. side by side. We raised a little over 11 million Canadian, and with those funds, we actually paid off the debt that we had on the books with our venture lender out of New York, and we did that in March of this year. So we're awfully excited to actually see quite a clean balance sheet with no debt. Boardwalk is focused, and the digital ledger is focused on these large organizations that have spent a lot of money on their transactional systems of record, like Oracle and SAP and Salesforce.com, where a lot of that money that's been spent, they've got these big systems of record, but yet most people are still running the business on Microsoft Excel. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is that while they've spent all this money on these systems of record, Excel is still a repository for a lot of the information that an information worker needs in order to make daily decisions in their business. So what we see is that as someone goes out and they want to pull data from SAP or Salesforce or ServiceNow, pull that information into a central point, they don't have anywhere to put it. So what they do is they put it into Microsoft Excel. And then before you know it, they start writing formulas against that to say, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And then before you know it, there's 50 people where they're emailing these spreadsheets around. And as they're emailing these spreadsheets around, people start going, well, what was the last version? Who made the last change? How could that cell have changed from $1.2 million to $800,000? Why did our margin change on this particular product? And it really can become messy fruit salad. So Boardwalk's platform works with companies kind of in a land and expand strategy where we take those manual processes that are mainly based in spreadsheets today, and we transition them over into our secure cloud environment, which then is the Boardwalk digital ledger and the kind of low-code application platform for doing the conversion. So let me show you, Martin, kind of how this works and the value that we have in the digital ledger. Let's talk a little bit more about kind of the problems that we solve. So this patented digital ledger that's really kind of been referred to in the marketplace as a low-code application platform, which means that you can rapidly move this information into kind of a platform environment without having to go and rewrite a lot of code. But it allows people to be able to work at the same time on the same data. We have this single version of the truth strategy where you are able to actually manage and track every single change that's done between the parties, and you can do this without kind of messing up the data. So what does this really mean to the enterprise? And what it means is that if you kind of look at the enterprise today, on the left-hand side, this is pretty typical, where you have an information worker that's sitting in a cubicle or in an office, and they've got data everywhere. They got data in this system, this database, that database. It's very difficult for them. So what they traditionally will do is they will find a place to capture all of that data and try and start to make sense of it. So as an example, you might have inventory data in your inventory management system, but then you might have sales data in Salesforce.com, and you might have pricing data in Oracle. And it's very difficult for somebody to kind of pull all this together. So historically, what's happened is that if an enterprise information worker doesn't have an application to use, they'll use Microsoft Excel. And they'll basically go pull data from different areas within the organization. They'll line the data up in a row or a column. Then they'll start, kind of writing formulas against that to say, well, if this happens, what would happen here? And before you know it, these spreadsheets become kind of the go-to place for not only information in the enterprise, but also a go-to place to make decisions. And once you kind of get the data lined up and you start writing formulas, the next thing that happens is you start emailing these spreadsheets around. And we all know that the minute that you get more than 2 or 3 people on a spreadsheet and you start emailing these spreadsheets around, it's what version am I on? Who made the last update? What happened here? Why is this cell 1.2 million when yesterday it was 800,000? What's happening? And this is what we see in the enterprise. We think that most enterprises today have anywhere from, 20 to 100 of these, what we call mission critical spreadsheet processes. And it's frankly messy fruit salad. And this is what it looks like. And so what we've done by creating the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform is created a secure, centralized environment for everybody to move these spreadsheet processes into the digital ledger and then be able to exchange data back and forth. So as an example, when Apple wants to communicate with a host of their, call it component suppliers, Apple may be party A, and they would submit a change into the digital ledger. So instead of emailing a spreadsheet to the supplier, change would go into the digital ledger. The supplier would then get notified, would then refresh their spreadsheet on their desktop and see that Apple just made a change, such as I want to increase the number of units from 200,000 to 225,000. Then the supplier would then respond back and saying, we can do that by this date. And then the price goes back and forth, and then the commits go back and forth. And everyone is seeing this transaction chained data with a single version of the truth sitting in the Boardwalk digital ledger so that there's no surprises, there's no email. And what it really does is it allows you to be able to get to decisions faster and be able to improve the business. And again, there's anywhere from kind of 20 to maybe 50 of these type of mission critical spreadsheet processes throughout the enterprise. So we really believe that Boardwalk is critical to these enterprises. Today, we've got, I think it's 23 of the Fortune 500 as customers. We'll show you a customer list in a minute, but companies like Coca-Cola and Ernst & Young and Verizon Wireless and Apple, really big companies that say, I need to move all of this manual information. We kind of call it the last mile of digital transformation. I need to move that manual stuff into a cloud-driven, automated manner. And when you do that on the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform, you get this collaboration tool that allows you to be able to communicate. It gives you kind of an efficiency tool that allows you to scale and reduce cost because you're going to be making decisions faster. And then, of course, the reliability of decision making through data analytics, such as, now that I've got all the data in one central point, I can run analytics against that data. But the key thing here is if I can make a decision faster, if I know I'm going to run out of inventory faster, if I know I've got a problem over here, if I know about it sooner, I can make a decision sooner, which then increases revenue and increases the results for the business. So let's talk a little bit about kind of unstructured data. So a spreadsheet in an organization is called unstructured data. And today, this is, according to all of the experts like IDC and Gartner, this is the single largest problem in the enterprise today is how do you manage that unstructured data? And frankly, Microsoft Excel and all of this manual work is considered unstructured data. And so about 80% of all the data in an enterprise is unstructured. And our mission at Boardwalk is to help companies get control of all of that unstructured data and be able to move it to a digital ledger cloud environment that, again, allows them to be able to automate better. So examples of unstructured data would be PDFs, HTMLs, Word documents, and Excel. Anything that's coming in, via email or in a file server or something is all considered unstructured data, and it really is the biggest problem in the enterprise today. Boardwalk's mission, again, as stated, was we are the enterprise data management platform. We look at ourselves as just as important in the enterprise as the Oracle or the SAP or the Salesforce or IBM. We've got an integration framework that's part of the platform that allows us to connect in and actually automatically bring data in. So as I talked about earlier, maybe that the inventory data is sitting in SAP. Well, if that's the case, to get it and run a report and then manually enter it into a spreadsheet to then email to somebody, in our system, we can automatically connect into SAP, bring that data into the Boardwalk digital ledger, which is then viewed as a spreadsheet front end. And then from there, you can then collaborate with people without having to email. And then on the other side of the house, if you will, we're bringing in all of this unstructured data so that finally the enterprise has got a place to manage this last mile of digital transformation where you can combine the structured data with the unstructured data in our digital ledger to then be able to automate a lot of this information. The way in which we make money is we charge an annual SaaS fee, right to access for the digital ledger. Most of the time we'll get started with kind of one application, call it a forecasting or planning application. And we have a land and expand strategy so that when we get into an organization and they go, wow, I really like this. This is great. You've solved my problem. You did it faster than anybody else. My users continue to love to have Excel as the front end, but now you've given me a server on the back end that allows me to automate all of this and bring it all together. So, we charge a fee for the server and a fee per application that we automate onto the platform. Most of the time, we'll kind of get started on our first implementation with a customer, somewhere around 100 to 150,000 all in for the first application. And then from there, once we get to know them, they get to know us, they go, wait a minute, I've got another 20 of these applications that if we could move those over to Boardwalk and get out of a manual environment, this is going to create a lot of value for me. So the cosmetics company that I talked about earlier, we closed that deal, I believe, in February. We've now delivered the first application, which is up and running, which is an application to help them manage packaging and labeling. And we already now are going to be starting probably this week on our second application, which will be to solve another problem within their environment. So, this is the way that we go by landing and expanding. And of course, the central digital ledger increases revenue, improves customer satisfaction. There's a big component of this in compliance and auditability. We provide that real-time visibility of the data and so that you can make a decision. And of course, everything is centrally controlled so that you're starting to now get a handle on all of this unstructured and structured data that needs to be managed. And then, of course, the collaboration part of this, which is becoming even more important with people working remotely and not able to walk into someone's office and say, hey, what about this? They want to be able to collaborate, and we support that in a big way. These are some of our customers today. Again, we're awfully proud of every single one of our customers. Most notable customer here might be EY. EY, they do audits for technology and security across both governments and large organizations. And EY actually chose Boardwalk to be part of their tax technology platform. And we're awfully proud of the work that we're doing with EY. Think, by the way, of a tax or audit firm and all the spreadsheets that they're bouncing around. Think of the value of being able to automate all of that onto a digital ledger so you can see history and you can set up all of the collaboration. Clients use us for a host of different things: financial planning. We do a lot in the supply chain, tax planning, as I just discussed, deal price management, trade procurement, and spend management. Basically, anywhere that there's not an enterprise system and companies are still trying to do this manually, or it might be too complicated to put in some big fancy system and they'd rather use spreadsheets, that's where Boardwalk kicks in. And again, we think there's anywhere from 20 to 50, even sometimes hundreds of these different applications running through the enterprise. A couple of interesting case studies. This is for a manufacturer for apparel. This will just give you an example of the land and expand. The items here in the dark blue are applications that we've delivered for this particular client. The items in white here are applications that we're going to be working on over the near term. And so we get started with seasonal planning, and then you roll to production plan and product order generation. This is basically their entire supply chain that will then be moved eventually over onto the Boardwalk environment. Great example of land and expand. 5x ROI for this company, first year savings 1.3 million. Another great case study is on Semiconductor. They're a customer of ours for a long time. We've done multiple applications for them that are running on the Boardwalk Digital Ledger platform. This particular application that we delivered last year has to do with how they answer RFP, RFQs. So today they get about 25 RFP, RFQs in a day. Before, it used to take them about 7 days on average to respond to an RFP, RFQ. I mean, this is a company that's coming to them saying, I want to buy your product. Please give me pricing. And when you're costing out and negotiating pricing on semiconductors, it's a lot more complex than you would think, because there's a lot of variables that's involved. And so all these variables where you'd have these spreadsheets that were bouncing around, amongst a dozen or 2 dozen people, by implementing and moving this over onto the Boardwalk system, we were able to reduce the response time from 7 days down to 2 days. And that allowed them to increase their sales conversion by 15 to 20%. So the faster you can respond to a request for quote, the higher probability it will be that you'll actually win the deal. And so they increased their sales conversion by 15 to 20%. First year ROI 6x with a $1.8 million cost savings. And by the way, this is just cost savings that did not include the value, the ancillary value that onsemi is realizing by increasing their sales conversions. A little bit about the company. Our fiscal year began April 1. We're going into this fiscal year with about 3.5 million of recurring revenue, kind of on the books, if you will. We've got a pretty low attrition rate, so we feel really good about this number. This past year, we improved our Ebitda significantly. Again, I talked about the 63% of revenue from our new SaaS model that we started to convert and move people into in 2018. Current pipeline, 8 million, and gross margins at 85% and improving. Again, land and expand strategy. We get a new customer. We then work with them to penetrate into other areas within the organization. And then, of course, we'll be increasing not only our recurring revenue through that, but also we'll be able to increase our pricing for that recurring revenue by adding new features and capabilities onto the platform itself. Cap structure, again, this has been updated since our financing and since we paid off the debt. You can see in the share price, by the way, that was as of March 26. I think the share price is quite a bit higher than that today. But again, cash balance here, no debt, shares outstanding, and you can see the public float and the management insider beneficial ownership percentage here. So good amount of the company still owned by management and quite dedicated team. Again, the team, Martin, you've known us for a while. We're all senior guys. We've done this before. This happens to be my 5th company now in Silicon Valley as the CEO in tech. 3 really nice exits. One didn't make it. You learn a lot from the one that didn't make it. Charlie, who's on the phone, super experienced with other TSXV companies as a CFO and a senior leader in those organizations. So we've all been around the block. We know what we're doing. We're senior folks and awfully proud of the team. So again, Boardwalk's a unique, patented, sustainable, competitive platform solution. It's all about SaaS. I wake up every day thinking about how do I increase that recurring revenue number. The enterprises really need to solve this problem. They can no longer afford to be manual. They need to move everything to a digital environment, which then increases productivity, gives them a competitive edge. We're sticky solution. Again, we're so proud of the customers that we have today, 23, 24 of the Fortune 500, and some big names on there, and really great supporters of the company. And then, of course, the recurring revenue, the growing pipeline, the high margins, and really significant operational leverage. I mean, as we continue to build this thing, and as that recurring revenue keeps going up, you're going to see a quite a profitable organization here. While we will be investing money back in to continue this growth, it's a very exciting time for us, and I think that this fiscal year for us, Martin, is going to be just tremendous. So I'm going to, Martin, kind of stop my presentation now and hand it back over to you to see if we've got any questions that have come in, and I'm very happy to kind of dig in at any level that you would like.
Oh, great. Andy, thanks. Yeah, I'll start off with some questions here. So when your clients are using your system, is it like fire up the Boardwalk, or like I saw Excel there, is it your own kind of application, or are you sort of embedded within Excel or on a web page, or either or like right. How does the user actually interact with it?
Great question. Let me show you an example here of kind of what an application would look like with regard to using an Excel front end. So the answer is that our core technology is the digital ledger platform that we've built out and have some patents on that technology, some others pending. But the key is that you can connect into the digital ledger platform in 3 different ways. You can connect from a mobile environment, you can connect using a browser, or you can connect using Microsoft Excel. And we have basically a plug-in into Excel that allows then us to rapidly build an application to then connect into the digital ledger. So this happens to be, let's call it a view of data that a user would have. And the user is kind of looking at, maybe this user is in charge of corn at this company called Syngenta, which manufactures seeds. And they're looking for allocation, distribution of allocation, how many orders do I have coming in? And they literally will go through this spreadsheet, make their changes, and then when they're ready to share their changes back to the server, they simply go up here and hit submit. And it then pushes all of the changes into the server. And then if I was another user and I came in and I said, okay, I need to see what's going on with this data, I could hit refresh. And if I hit refresh, it goes out to the server and it pulls all of the changes in from the server into my local spreadsheet. And sorry, I hit the wrong button. And you can see that when a change comes in, there's a little red icon that shows up in the top right corner of the spreadsheet cell. And it says this value has been changed from 1900 to 2200. Which is really cool, right? It's like, wait a minute, I'm not emailing spreadsheets around. I've got a single version of the truth. I can see exactly what happened. And then if I click on this cell and go up to cell history, I can actually see all of the transactions that have happened and the historical component of that all securely shown in the digital ledger, so that there's no fooling around. Everybody knows who made what change, and it's totally secure. So when you're moving a lot of data around, trying to figure out things, make decisions, this is basically how it works.
All right. What is great about a spreadsheet is that, let's say I'm talking to a client or whatever, I can just start it up and start doing my unstructured data and that. And then if I want, and so I can get some data and solutions out of it immediately. But with you guys, I gotta, okay, well, we want to do this. We got to phone up Boardwalk or like whenever you want to make a change, do you have to call you guys up? But you also described yourselves, sorry, rambling on here, as a low code environment. So is there a lot that the user themselves can do on their end?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our goal is to effectively make the user self-sufficient. When you look at, and part of our technology, Martin, is that we have what we call a single schema platform. So we literally can take a spreadsheet, no matter how complex the spreadsheet or the workbook is. And you can see down here, there's a whole bunch of different tabs going on here. And we literally can take this entire workbook and in one click, move it into the Boardwalk digital ledger. From there, once it's in the digital ledger, then there is some work to be done to do things like set up access control, make sure that the security components are matching with the enterprise's security components, doing kind of that configuration work to be able to get this done and up and running. And normally it takes about 2 weeks of kind of planning, 2 weeks of the configuration work, and then 2 weeks of testing. So it takes about 6 weeks total, start to finish, to kind of move a large solution like this into the Boardwalk digital ledger. But again, it's very simple. It's really just configuration. You're not writing code. Now, if Syngenta in this particular case decided to take this application, this spreadsheet application, and rewrite it into a traditional database environment with a browser front end and all of the other kind of stuff, it would take 6 to 8 months. It would take 3 people 6 to 8 months because they have to go write all of the code and all the intelligence that's already captured here for Boardwalk in the spreadsheet. And so most of the time when we give the option of the users to say, you want to use a mobile environment, a browser, or Excel, they all say, I want to use Excel because this is how their brain works. And they go, wow, if you can just let me submit, refresh, and share data back and forth using Excel, it's perfect. And then in the future, if they want to add a row, add a column, change a formula, you can do all of that within the digital ledger platform. You don't have to come to anybody from an IT perspective. That's why they call it low code. It's really self-service.
Martin, if I could reiterate a point with Andy in terms of the financial aspect as well. And just to be really clear, we do not go into customers and rewrite their software, which you often see with SAP. We have a team of 20 or 40 guys who camp out in that corner office for the next 12 months while they're doing the implementation. For us, from a financial standpoint, this is also key. I'll use EY as an example. From the time that we signed the EY contract to the time that EY went live in the field with their own customers in the tax group was 6 weeks. And we had a team of 4.5 guys doing that. That means we can scale. And the great advantage is we use a lot of guys out of India. About half of our support is out of India. So it's also low cost. So that point of, we're not rewriting the code, so we're not being intrusive, but rather we're complementing the existing structure with a better one. without requiring people to buy a lot of SQL servers and do SQL queries or rewrite code. So that means we can scale as well. So the idea of being non-intrusive into the company is a win-win for both the client itself, quick time to market, low cost, immediate results, higher ROI, and for us, it's operating leverage.
And I sort of a softball question here, but I would guess that's pretty low risk for the client then, as well as, like, the worst case scenario is they spend $100,000 and it doesn't work. They haven't blown up their SAP system, or they haven't, like, they're critical that you're doing a little add-on that sort of pulls data out. You're not rewriting the ERP or their supply chain management software.
Correct, Martin. But I will say that a lot of the work that we do is we are solving complex problems. So, you know, you look at like this application that we built for Brocade, which is a very complex problem that they had. And again, if they were to go rewrite this in SAP, they'd have, you know, 16 months of Accenture consultants and other consultants sitting in the corner office, as Charlie said, where we literally can take this and 6 weeks later, we're up and running with a full-blown application. And that's how we get started. Get started, prove yourself, and then they go, well, wait a minute, we can use you guys over here and over here and over here and over here. And then we're off to the races. Just like the cosmetics company where we started in February, delivered the first application in 6 weeks. We're now starting to work this week on the second application. And each one of those, you know, will pay us 125,000 kind of on an annual basis, and then just start to roll and try and get to kind of 10 or 15 applications per enterprise. And when that happens, we're looking at, you know, kind of a nice recurring revenue model of about $1 million per enterprise. And, you know, who knows where it could go from there. We really look at ourselves as a major important component to the technology stack for these large organizations, where we let the SAPs and the Oracles and the Salesforces go take care of all the other stuff. We'll pick up all the leftovers, if you will, which are all these manual processes, and rapidly move them into Boardwalk. And it's quite high value for the enterprise. So
is there a one-time implementation fee on it, and then you do the recurring $100,000 or whatever after? So some of these applications, you know, it's 6 weeks worth of kind of average professional services time. We'll normally run them, you know, anywhere from, you know, 30,000 to 50,000 as a kind of a one-time setup, depending. But, you know, there are times where we've done the setup and it's taken, you know, 2 days. There's other ones where it might take 6 weeks because they're a little bit more complicated. And so we price the one-time setup fee on services kind of on a case-by-case basis, but it averages around 40,000 one-time setup fee, and then call it another 50 to 75,000 in the recurring number per application. Can be higher, can be lower.
Martin, one of the things also, just to reiterate that, we usually implement those via milestones. So it's not a times and material, so we get paid for just sitting around. This is a matter of, we only get paid upon completion of each and every milestone, which the client needs to fully accept in writing before we even invoice them. And that idea is that you're working side by side with them on a success-based implementation.
If I remember correctly, when we first met a bunch of years ago, you weren't initially on the SaaS model. It was more the traditional big upfront fee and then a 5-10% sort of maintenance upgrade fee. Did I remember that correctly? And have you, if so, have you transitioned everyone over to the SaaS model?
Yeah, sorry, Martin, I admire you, but yeah, I think that was the pre-2018 sort of model. If you take a look at it from 2018, basically since the company went on the TSXV, it has been a full SaaS model. Prior to that, yes, that was the case. So if any investor who's listening is trying to look at that list of customers and kind of trying to figure out average revenue, pre-2018, there was a lot of that one-time fee with maintenance, that occurred. But the idea of being able to do, as Andy described, land and expand, the SaaS model was the best way of doing it. And if you take a look 2/3 of the revenue and contracts are based on the SaaS revenue. So what you are seeing underneath is a growth. What we refer to in our financials as legacy is really what I think what you were talking about, Martin. But the idea of being able to land customers such as EY and grow. Remember, EY is more than doubled right now, even during the COVID period, along with other customers like Mars and Sekisui, several of these other customers who are adding on Estee Lauder now. They've all been implementing with the first application, continue to add on new ones. And so that is from the pure SaaS model of increase the recurring revenue. We do get some professional services for implementation. Quite frankly, most of the professional service, if it's not from that 4 to 6 week implementation, is actually helping the customer find new applications. And I'm not sure Andy really touched on this, but we estimate that there are 100 mission critical applications that Boardwalk could, in the typical enterprise, be able to address. And in our model of trying to get to at least $1 million of recurring revenue per customer, we're only assuming that we hit 10 of those applications, so 10%. So again, this reiterates the point that we are not trying to come in and tell people, you need to discard your Oracle and SAP. What we're saying is, even with a 10% sort of threshold in those 100 critical applications, the model that we have would be able to generate $1 million per customer per year. So then take a look at the number of customers that we could get. There's a reason why they call it Fortune 500. We're trying to get as many of those as possible.
So when you first sign on a customer, it's relatively small with like a couple $100,000 or something like that with one app. And then you keep adding it. So you announce a big customer, it's probably not a big contract to start off with. How many new apps can you typically, or do you have enough of a sense of, with a Fortune 500 company, how many new apps you can kind of roll out with them every year? Is it sort of limited by your technicians, or is it limited by their sort of creativity or sort of resources to find new uses for you?
Yeah, Martin, it's really limited by the customer as opposed to by us. We've got the resources. One of the great things about the company is the Indian resources that we have that are all of our own people, been trained and been with us for a long, long time. So the economies of scale, if you will, of being able to ramp this are really good. And, we can ramp very quickly. We can also train customers to do this work themselves. We have a full training and certification program. So there's really no limit to what we can do from a scalability standpoint. It's more about how much can the organization take, the client take, with regard to converting, and how quickly do they want to go. And lots of times, even though Charlie was talking about kind of, we think there's 100 of these applications, they can be spread throughout multiple business units. And so you've got to go in and win that business unit to then have them say, yes, I've got 5 applications that I want to convert over, and then this year, and then another 5 next year, and let's get started. And so that's exactly what we do. So when you see us make an announcement on a new customer, it's a big deal, but the land and expand is really where we are. And we're both landing and expanding with new customers. We're also landing and expanding with existing customers today.
And you mentioned, let's say 5. Is that sort of fairly typical for your Fortune 500 companies, that you'll roll out, you start off with 1, and then every 12 months, you'll hopefully add like 4 or 5 new applications?
Yeah, I would say that certainly is the goal going forward. Realistically, at least today, it's been more like 2 or 3, but that's because of getting started with the model and really driving it. And we've got dedicated people that own specific accounts that are in there every day, kind of shoulder to shoulder with the business people, talking about what's next, where can we really add a lot of value. Let's go move this next application over onto Boardwalk.
And I would see that as you do more applications, the organization or the different business units talk amongst themselves, and they get more comfortable with, and it sort of creates their sort of creativity. It's like, oh, we could use it for this and for that, and create new ideas. So maybe is there some acceleration, you think, with the rollout of new apps?
Oh, absolutely. And there's also an acceleration from from a geo standpoint as well, Martin, so that, Mars is an example. They're a worldwide organization selling both pet food, largest pet food manufacturer in the world, the largest confectionery company in the world. And we're now reaching all kinds of different countries and geographies with different business units within that organization, because we have a master agreement with them that allows us to kind of go anywhere within their organization. And, that's what you do. You build trust. And as you build trust with success, you'll start to see that land and expand. And we're really working hard on that, right? Every single implementation of one of these applications is mission critical to Boardwalk, and it's got to go perfectly, and it's got to be a big success, because our future revenue depends a lot on the initial success of these first few rollouts.
Changing topics a little bit, what sort of you sort of supplement or complement SAP and Oracle and all those? Who are your competition? I would guess off the top of my head, Smartsheets. They kind of advertise themselves as sort of collaborative kind of stuff, or who are your competitors?
Yeah, it's interesting. We really don't run into Smartsheet or kind of the Google Docs spreadsheet at all. And that may sound odd to people, but it's really true. Those spreadsheets, those kind of online browser-only spreadsheet-like applications are fairly limiting in the ability for them to scale. And not only do they do not have the core platform feature functions that we have within our platform that would allow you to really go big enterprise. And as an example, there's no integration framework in either of those applications. And when you look at the stuff that we're doing with these major companies, the ability to go pull data in from SAP or Oracle or Salesforce.com or ServiceNow or any of these big, heavy iron, if you will, systems of record, that's critical to our ability to succeed going forward and deliver a great solution. And so, we look at the competition really for Boardwalk more of other kind of low-code application platform development environments, but also the other way that companies can solve a problem of a manual spreadsheet process with 50 people collaborating on a daily basis is they can take that and they can go try and rewrite it into a normal database-driven application. And that's the beauty of Boardwalk. If they go do that, and let's say they want to hire 5 people and 2 consultants, and they're in Kazakhstan or wherever they are, and they've outsourced the development of this, it could take a year because of the complexity of rewriting this code and everything, where Boardwalk and our single schema platform with all the tools and bells and whistles that we've got on the platform allows you in a single schema environment to just, if you will, convert that spreadsheet and keep it exactly as it is, but just move it to now you've got a server on the back end and people can continue to use that beloved user interface, which is the spreadsheet that they've been using. So they get all the advantages of an enterprise application and all the advantages of keeping Excel as the front end, as opposed to having to go rewrite everything. So, we really don't see any direct competition, although there are ways to solve the problem. It's just a matter of how much do you want to spend, how much risk do you want to take? And again, these low-code application platforms are really starting to take hold of solving these problems.
Martin, I'll use a real world experience. One of the reasons why I was attracted to Boardwalk was whether I was at Intel, but I'll use my experience when I was heading up global semis at Credit Suisse, where I had 100 people, worldwide working on the same model, an ecosystem. And apologies. Sorry about that. Low tech. To Andy's point, was the ability of having, other guys like Smart Sheets or Google Sheets may satisfy one aspect of it. But the thing about Boardwalk, which I want to reiterate, is this aspect. I could have 100 people globally working on the same spreadsheet, making changes at the same time. And if somebody wanted to then add on 4 new columns, we used to literally have to shut down everybody for 4 days while we added on 4 new columns for a new fiscal year. You don't have to have that, shutdown aspect. Or in terms of having the ability of somebody like Kellogg, who has 24 different suppliers coming in, you would never want your suppliers going into Kellogg for feedstock, be it Archer Daniels, Conagra, or their own captive. You would never want those guys to see the price of, say, wheat coming in and being able to see on the others. The only person who would want to see that master sheet would be Kellogg. And then if you want to go back and say, okay, I want to go back 6 months, I want to go back 2 years, I want to go back 5 years, I want to go back 10 years and change just a couple of cells to be able to do a sensitivity analysis on my model. If you're trying to do all 3, have unlimited number of concurrent users on the same spreadsheet making changes and having every one of those changes tracked, to be able to go back and make changes on the fly without causing people to stop, without allowing unauthorized people to see the data overall, with enabling an audit trail, with enabling the provenance as well. I would dare you to find anybody who hits 2 of those 3, let alone all 3. And that is really the unique aspect that Boardwalk has, is that it's truly a unique platform. And yeah, there are guys, if you want to do a Google Sheet for doing, scheduling or something, we're not targeting that sort of market. But when it comes to things like a real-time reconciliation of a PO between your Hong Kong facility and your Memphis fulfillment, center on the fly while something's in the air, you need something that can be able to do that on a real-time basis and be able to take a look at the timestamps and be able to have multiple people work on it at the same time. What's the current system? It's email and Excel attachments with the person who gets it, then making the change and then resaving as a new version and going back and saving it, or somebody else goes onto the model but it's read only while somebody else is doing it. We've all experienced it. That visceral aspect, we're resolving that visceral aspect.
Your solution seems very oriented towards, let's say, medium large businesses. And when I mean medium, I don't mean like 100 employees. Medium in the US, I think, is what, 10,000 employees or something. Like this is sort of like they're low code, but they are custom solutions. Am I right on that?
Well, again, we don't look at them as custom solutions. We look at it as configuring an existing solution that they already have in a spreadsheet to then just move it into a server environment where you get all of the value of central management of the information and security and compliance. We do have a kind of a self-service product that's called the Excel Cloud. And that it certainly can be used for smaller applications, but where in a self-serve environment, but where we really are seeing value is going in at the enterprise level and helping them solve these big problems that they've got in a very rapid manner, utilizing the platform.
All right. And do you guys use any like resellers or technology partners to help broaden your distribution, leverage their client base or their technology providers?
Yeah, so we do have partners that we have signed, companies like Accenture and HCL that will work with us to both do implementations and also do some of the sales works. Most of the time, at least in these early days since 2018, with the SaaS model on the land and expand, we felt that it was important for us to do it ourselves with our own direct sales force. We are entering a new market for us, which is into financial services. And within that financial services market, most of that is being, managed by partners who have got deep relationships with these large financial institutions and do a lot of the work kind of pre-authorized behind the scenes, both in the US and India and in other locations. And so as we enter that particular market, Martin, you will see us start to announce more partnerships because we think it's better to enter that market through a partnership and a trusted third party than walking in the front door of a large financial institution and trying to do it ourselves.
All right. Yeah, because the financial services guys, they have massive IT budgets, but they're also super risk averse and protective and so forth, I presume.
Correct.
Martin, we actually have been working with some smaller companies. One, the shoe company Echo out of Europe, for example. So it's not all of the Fortune 500. We go beyond that as well. And some are legacy, some are newer as well.
I guess, so let me just address that. So I want everybody to understand, we're not just limited to large organizations. A small, medium organization that might be $500 million of sales has got the exact same problems that a large organization does. And they will need the Boardwalk application platform just as much as a large organization would. We've just focused on the large organizations because bigger footprint, bigger opportunity, a lot more of these spreadsheets that need to be converted over onto Boardwalk. But we do have customers in the small, medium-sized space, and we would never turn anybody like that away. They want to use the platform. Here we go. We just have to be smart on where we focus our marketing and lead generation dollars to be able to drive the biggest bang for the buck.
The other aspect, Martin, is there's no one price or one price model fits all. And what I mean by that is some of the larger organizations, in some cases, what they want to do is they want to sign one global license. And so you'll get that large amount. In other ones, what they may want to do, which we have experienced, is they'll want to sign a global IT license and let each of the business unit managers or the SKUs then implement the solution. And that actually adds for quicker and deeper penetration because now you have the blessing of global IT. And then each of the business units who see the ROI value of the Boardwalk platform want to adopt it, as opposed to having a CIO who has a large sticker price. It depends on the organization. And so the point is that to us, a small, company that's not a Fortune 500 could be the equivalent of one of those large enterprise business units themselves. So it's not saying, oh, we're only targeting Fortune 500. It's like, no, what we're doing is we're resolving business unit, managers' problems within a global enterprise, which can also connect, across the board. So think of it more like a matrix, but a standalone company that's, 100 million. Well, I'll use an example. Appeal Technologies, which has an incredibly innovative technology overall, which does in fact supply Costco and Walmart and Kroger's and stuff, is not a Fortune 500, but they do service those other companies as well. And that's an example of somebody that's not in the Fortune 500 yet.
Do you find, is it easier to sort of sign up a, let's say one of the mid-small kind of businesses, or because they're a little smaller and more nimble, or because what I'm thinking is like you get better sort of sales leverage when you sign up a big Fortune 500 because they've got so many different business units, but maybe the initial sign-on takes longer, but the opportunity is bigger. But if you go after a smaller company, maybe a quicker initial sales cycle and then big, but not as big as a Fortune 500.
Yeah, Martin, I think, we've stayed focused on just a couple of targeted industries where we're not trying to, kind of spread the peanut butter so thinly that we don't have anything to eat. And so this is another area where, we're targeting, CPG manufacturing companies that have a lot of inventory because there's a lot of risk there. And there's also a lot of spreadsheet movement of data around moving this inventory stuff around. And so we've kind of tried to focus in on specific industries and then target the largest within those industries and then drive downward into kind of the SME groups within those industries. So yes, we and look, any organization that we come in and we become part of their technology stack and platform, there's work to be done to, validate, our technology and do reference calls and do all that kind of stuff, whether it's an SME or whether it's a large organization. And frankly, sometimes the SMEs have been harder than the large organization. And on the flip side, sometimes it's a large organization that's harder. So, the net is we're just trying to place our bets in the right area with the largest organizations where there's a lot of spreadsheets that need to be converted, because that seems to be the most economical use of our sales time and dollars right now.
All right, I'll do a sort of an easy question for you guys, layup for you. I'm thinking one of the attractive things that clients like is they have to feel way better about the security on your application than people zipping around spreadsheets here and there and all that. Given this age, I would think that's probably a fairly big driver.
So the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, fourth quarter of last year, issued a press release. And for those of you in Canada that don't know the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, it's the governing body for all of the financial institutions in the United States. And they actually did a public press release fining Citibank $400 million in a civil penalty because of the lack of compliance and security around what they call user-defined applications. And a user-defined application is an unstructured information set like a spreadsheet. And it just so happens that there's tens of thousands of these running around Citibank. Also, tens of thousands of these spreadsheet processes running around most major financial institutions. And guess what? If you've got a spreadsheet that's sitting on your laptop and the laptop gets stolen from, while you're at Heathrow Airport, and someone takes that laptop and they start looking at the data that's in these spreadsheets and it's unsecured and uncontrolled, it's a security problem. And so the whole issue of moving these spreadsheet applications, which are mission critical in these large organizations, over to a secured, compliant server environment where there's no data that's left on the desktop or on the laptop, and everything is driven from a, if you will, a local view of the Excel into the server, and then when you're done, there's nothing that's left on the desktop. That's where all of this is going. And so, we're really starting to see a very big push on not only improving the results and decision making by moving these spreadsheets onto the Boardwalk environment, but also a security. There's security issues and a real drive to automate and secure these spreadsheets as well on the Boardwalk platform.
All right. We're getting up to an hour here, so we should be wrapping this up. But I just want to talk a little bit about your financials. I believe from the one slide, you've got $3.5 million of SaaS recurring revenue. And you guys are a U.S. company. Is that U.S. dollars, or are we talking Canadian here? And then just to add on to that, like any guidance in terms of revenue growth, maybe not specific, but kind of consistent with prior growth, or can you give some kind of sort of outlook on that?
Yeah, Charlie, why don't you take that?
Yeah, so Martin, those are in US dollars. And while we're not giving out guidance, the closest thing I would say to it is our pipeline right now. And the reason why I mentioned the pipeline is specifically identified projects by customer, by timing, with the scoping of even the dollar amounts preliminary in discussion over the identified period. So that's really a 6 to 9 month period. Now, the timing may shift within it, but that's really up to the client, not necessarily from our standpoint, though we do have to spread it out. It's the closest proxy that I would give overall. This time last year, before COVID really hit, we were about 4.5 to 5 million in pipeline. And that, again, being identified projects that we had. COVID hit, there was obviously a bit of a step back. But I think because of COVID and how people realize that they need a better system for being able to handle concurrency of remote work, and that can be across the globe or across campus or across the table. That pipeline is now over 8 million right now, and those are US dollar amounts. And those are a combination of recurring license and professional services. Because these are new projects, they're closer to sort of a 2/3, 1/3 sort of mix.
And from that 4.5 million last year, did all of that fall into place, or did some of it drop off? Or can you sort of comment on your conversion rate into signed contracts?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about normalcy given COVID, but yeah, we had projects that dropped off, came back on. Quite frankly, one of them, Estee Lauder, was a dropped off, came back on, not only came back on, but came back on with sort of the vengeance. Compared to where we were last year, we've actually exceeded that amount. There's a large social media entity who paused and has now come back, and instead of, and that has also increased in terms of scope. The financial institution, there's a question online, our discussions with that bank system, that didn't exist, back then. So, and not only have we got that one, but other financial institutions as well. And again, that's not the fast transaction. Those are, sort of the compliance aspect that Andy was talking about. That wasn't there. There are others. There's a friend of mine who heads up a beverage company, and he was on the pipeline and then came back, but he realized, given this COVID, he was not coming back until July of this year. He made that call, pre-Labor Day last year. He knew that. So that's one of those that was off, came back on, as well. So it's a combination of, from a conversion standpoint, yeah, a little bit slower, but I don't want to say slower than expected, because I'm not sure what expectation was within COVID. But the sheer fact that the quantity of our pipeline has effectively doubled, I think reiterates that people who are CIOs and IT managers who are looking for a solution were dissatisfied with what they had during COVID and then came to us. I think that's probably the most significant aspect. But to your insinuated point, yes, we're getting closer to closings, and yes, there should be announcements over the next several weeks, months as well.
And I guess, like most things COVID related, maybe pushed back or delayed some projects, but sort of it's also accelerated probably the adoption possibly of this, as all these remote workers and people want to lock down, have access to the data, but also not have it sitting on the same hard drive as my kids' video games and that.
Yeah, that is true. But when it comes to mission critical, aspects, and again, I don't want to disclose too much of our customers' requirements as to why they're doing this, but it was not a frivolous decision. These were mission critical things, such as compliance for being able to ship, tracking. One of the things we didn't really get into is a DLA, defense logistic areas, for being able to track food supplies. And that also has spawned into active ingredients within the pharmaceutical areas. Even though we're not actively pursuing that area, both of those, it does show an ability of doing track and trace. And again, reiterates to the point that you had a government agency out there, the US government, who could not assure food safety, to the degree that it needed to. And they have awarded us the contract to be able to do that within military and expats working for the U.S. military abroad. Again, this is an aspect that a year ago we did not have that project. We do now.
All right. Just, I guess, to wrap up here, what kind of news flow coming out from over the coming year? Is it basically going to be new client announcements and some quarterly results and so forth? Or any, like, are you guys looking at M&A, anything like that? Or is it just sort of execute on sales and get some good numbers out?
Yeah, we're heads down, Martin, right now on executing on sales, getting good numbers out. And, we've got, with the financing that we did, we've got a great runway now. We're not actually looking to raise any funds right now. And based upon that, having paid off the debt, we've got money in the bank. We're rolling. It's all about expanding that software as a service and that recurring revenue. And so you'll see just normal announcements, and we get awfully excited about being able to announce to the market when we land a new customer. So or when we expand, in a big way, an existing customer. So you'll see a continuous news flow.
And just on profitability or cash flow, like I'm guessing you're not looking to have fat margins at this point. You're looking to grow the business. Should people be expecting kind of, call it break even kind of Ebitda levels, maybe a little higher, a little bit lower, but that's kind of the financial model going forward, and then any excess cash, push it right back into the business?
Yep, exactly. Or we're not trying. We don't think that right now that it's the time to get to to get the company to kind of a 20% EBITDA. We really want to invest back into the business to grow that top line, because that's what it's all about. And we are in a very unique, opportunistic time right now to take advantage of a market that is looking for and needs a solution like Boardwalk. And we're going to cement ourselves into every single organization that we can to be that solution.
So, Martin, just to put maybe a period on that, is any sort of the excess money that we'd be doing would be to try to further expand the pipeline, expand the market areas. I kind of mentioned a couple of these areas where we do have existing customers, but we're not actively deploying resources in to penetrate those areas, like the pharmaceutical. But those are areas that would be very ripe for our solution. So the idea of expand pipeline also means expand within different market areas. But one of the things that attracted me to Andy when before I joined in 2018 was he was a CEO that said no. I mean, how many times have you come across a CEO who said, "Hey, are you getting into banks? Are you getting into pharmaceutical?" And the CEO says, "Yes, yes." And then you realize this guy's overextended himself. Andy and the team, one of the things that attracted me was they were disciplined enough to say, we have a limited amount of resources. And quite frankly, at this point, including our financing, is now we have more resources to be able to expand, further. But there will be more opportunities, for us. And as we see more opportunities, we're going to be deploying off of that. There is not an R&D risk, but we are augmenting our R&D to maintain that, advantage. But no technology risk. Expand the pipeline, close the pipeline, increase the results. That's the mantra that we're in right now.
All right. Well, we should wrap it up here. So thank you very much. And just any wrap up conclusion comments here from you guys?
Martin, honored to have you as an investor, and appreciate your continued interest in Boardwalk and all of the people that follow you and your site. And congratulations on your new thing. And we're happy to come back at any time in the future and provide an update.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. That was really good, very informative. And we'll talk again soon. Cheers.
Thanks.